Hello and welcome to this tutorial where I'm going to have a look at how we can make a smashable loot crate. I'm starting from the adventure blueprint, but you can start from any blueprint that you want to, as long as you've made some kind of object that you can pick up or you've used something that already exists in the blueprint. For example, in something like the team deathmatch blueprint, you can place guns in the game just using the standard gun template. In the adventure template, we've got some kind of shop resource that we can spawn. So I'm starting from a point where I'm in one of these blueprints and I have a way of picking something up. I'm also going to caveat this by saying I am starting with a wrench. Now this is just the axe melee weapon. So if you look for the axe package in the community, you should find that that's a really good starting point for making your own melee weapons, or just having an axe melee weapon. And we need a melee weapon or some way of damaging something. So it could be a melee weapon, or it could be in fact a gun, just something that will damage something. And if you're not sure how to do that, the easiest way is to use one of the packages that's already available for you to do that. So to use a package, type in axe in the community tab, or if you're in basic mode, hit L for the library, go to the community tab, type in axe, and install the package and make sure that it's implemented into your game. So my wrench is just an axe with a different mesh. Let's have a look now in the adventure template, which is where I am, or the adventure blueprint. You should find in the templates tab that there is something like a shop resource and a resource spawner. So the resource spawner just spawns the shop resource, and you will see it in the blueprint. You'll see it underneath a tree, so it's just apples that are spawning, and you can make your own version of the shop resource. You could make oranges or plums or whatever else you want to call it, just having some kind of loot to pick up all ready to go. If I put that in the game world and playtest by pressing F5, you'll see that now there's this apple over here, and I should be able to walk over to it, press interact to pick it up, and it gets added to my inventory. So that already exists in the adventure template. That is our loot. So for our smashable loot crate, we need a crate and some loot. So we've got some loot, let's add a crate. So I'm going to go to the meshes tab and find the crate by searching for crate. You could also scroll through it, or you could choose not to use a crate. You could use literally any mesh for this, whatever you want. I'm using a crate because it's pretty classic and it already tells the player, hey, if you smash this, there's probably some loot inside. So I'm going to add the crate to my game world, and I'm going to drag and drop this resource spawner so that it's a child of the crate. So I've got a crate and I've got a resource spawner. You could, if you wanted to, drag and drop it from in here. You go down to your resource spawner here and drag that onto the crate. Let's not put it in the game world. So I've got a crate and I've got a resource spawner. Let's, for now, I'm just going to center this resource spawner on the crate. And you might have multiple resource spawners. You might want to spawn, 3 apples or 10 apples or however many. When you smash the crate, and we'll look at doing that in a minute. But we've got a crate, we've got a resource spawner. Now I'm going to configure the resource spawner so that it doesn't just automatically show an apple when it's already here, and that's so that you have to smash the crate in order to see the apple. So I'm going to uncheck respawning, and I'm going to uncheck show on init. And by doing that, essentially it means that this resource spawner won't show that apple until it's been asked to, and now it's requiring me as a game developer to ask it to show the resource. So, and we could see that in action. If I put this out here so that we'll be able to see it and playtest, you'll see that where I've moved the apple, there's nothing here, and I can't pick it up anymore. I can't interact with it. So by unchecking those 2 boxes, we essentially have kind of this invisible area where it can spawn a resource, but it hasn't spawned a resource. We need to tell it to do that. So let's move that resource spawner back under the crate. So it's within the crate, and it's also a child of the crate. I'm just doing that so that when I move the crate around, it moves the resource spawner with it. Or if I was to make this into a template, which is probably a good idea, then it will include that in the template. So the next thing we need to do is manage some kind of damage, manage the damage. So if I play test it and I've got my wrench and I hit this crate, we can see that it's, you know, sporting the effects and the sounds, which will be the same with the axe. All I've done is change the axe wrench to a wrench mesh, axe mesh to a wrench mesh. It's sporting all of that, but it's not actually doing anything to the crate. It's not damaging it. It's not, you know, removing it or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is, with my crate selected, I'm going to create a script. And to do that, you need to be in advanced mode, which is where I'm at now. If you're in basic mode, you'll need to press tab on your keyboard to enter advanced mode. And I'm going to add a script to the crate. Entity, add script, new script, and this is going to be my crate smash script. Scrolling down in the entity editor over here, I can see with my crate selected that my crate smash script has been added as a component within that entity. So I can edit that script by clicking this edit this asset button here. There we go. And we can see that I've got the template for the script. This is the base template for any script. So yours will be the same no matter what you call it here. It will be pretty much the same, just a slightly different name there if you call it something different. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to capture the event when the player damages the crate. So Crayta will automatically call on damage in any script that's attached to something which has been damaged. And you can find more about this in the documentation. If you go to api.crayta.com, you should be able to find the entity tab and look at the on damage function. So Crayta will automatically call the on damage function when this entity gets damaged on any script that's attached to this entity. And we're going to loop into that event. So rather than having an init function, I don't need an init function for this script. So what I'm going to do is replace the init here with on damage. And if I start typing that, we can see that it comes up with some IntelliSense here that says on damage is expecting 3 arguments to be passed along inside. The amount of damage that that has been caused, the thing which has caused the damage, so that will be the entity which has hit the crate. So in this case, my wrench, and a hit result, which will tell me things like the position of where it's been hit, stuff like that. So to fulfill my obligations to the on damage script, I need to include 3 parameters within the function here. So damage amount, first one, damage causer, the second one, and hit result, the third one. Now I can call these what I want to, as long as it doesn't start with a number, but I'm going to stick with the conventions which have already been shown to me in the IntelliSense. So I'm using the same names that were prompted in the IntelliSense. You can call them what you like as long as you've got 3 of them, but it's a little bit better practice to call them the same, just so that when you're looking at the documentation, things make sense. And if this script ever gets passed to someone else, they can read it and understand it. Okay, so on damage is going to be called not on the server when this entity is damaged, not created. So I'm updating my documentation here. And whilst I'm here, I'm just going to remove the example property so that it's a cleaner script. We don't need that example property there right now. Okay, so when this thing is damaged, for now, let's just keep things fairly straightforward. We can do print, open brackets, crate was damaged, end quotes, end brackets, and save that. So I'm expecting this on damage to be called when I damage the crate. Let's walk over to the crate, hit it with the wrench, and press O to see whether that was called. And it hasn't been called. And the reason for that is that things can't be damaged by default. You have to kind of opt in to make something damageable. So if I click on my crate in my world tree over here, we can see there's this damage enabled checkbox, which by default is unchecked. So I need to check that. And now I press F5, go back into the game. And when I hit it with the wrench, press O to open the console, I can see that now this function has been called. Crate was damaged. So I know that that print statement is working. So I know that because I know that this print statement is working here, I know that now that this function has been called, and it's called on the server, which I can see there. So what am I going to do in this function? We know that the code that I write here is now going to be executed when a player hits this crate. So for now, let's keep things simple. I'm going to just make the crate invisible by going self get entity dot visible equals false. That will just make the crate invisible. None of the children of the crate will be invisible. If you want to make other elements, maybe you've kit bashed a crate out of a few different meshes, then you might need to look into, that's a little bit more advanced, you might need to look into creating an array of those meshes and looping through those and making them all invisible. Self get entity dot visible equals false. Let's also turn off collisions. Just because something is invisible, I can still walk into it, and that could be quite jarring as a player. So self get entity dot collision enabled, using the IntelliSense here, equals false. So I've made it invisible and I've made it so that you can walk through it. Let's try that out, see if that works. So I'm going to close the console because I know that that print statement's working now. I'm going to walk over to the crate, hit the crate, and it disappears and I can walk through it. Fantastic. That's kind of step one of a smashable thing. The next thing I need to do is get my resource spawner to spawn some resource when this onDamage function is called. What I want to do is within here, I want to make it so that when this crate is destroyed, the resource spawner spawns a resource. And to do that, I could hard code some tightly coupled way of talking to the resource spawner, but a better way of doing that is to actually use the event as a property. So create an event as a property, and then I can hook that up in the editor rather than tightly coupling things within my script. So the event name is going to be called onDestroyed. That's the name of this property, the identifier. So the type is an event. I'll write a tooltip that says fires when this entity is destroyed. There we go. So I'll save that, and before I do anything else, let's call that event. So firstly, reference the event that I want to call, self.properties.onDestroyed. And if I want to call that as a function or call that event, then I do :send, open brackets, close brackets. That will literally just call that, that event. So now when I click on my crate and scroll down to my crate smash script, which is what I've been coding here, I should see that this onDestroyed event now appears. I'm going to click on the plus to create a new binding. I'm going to drag that resource spawner into the entity. It will automatically pre-fill the pickup spawner script because there's only one script on the resource spawner. So it's going to assume that whatever function I want to call is going to be within that script. And the event or the function that I want to call is showPickup. So stepping through the logic quickly, my player is going to run and hit this crate. When it hits that crate, the onDamage function is called. That means that this code within the onDamage function is executed. Firstly, it will make the crate invisible. Then it will make it so that the crate is no longer collidable, which means the player can walk through it. And then it will send an onDestroy event. The onDestroy event talks to my resource spawner. It specifically asks the pickup spawner script to run the showPickup function here, which means that then this code will execute. I don't particularly need to know what this code does. All I need to know is that this is the function to call to spawn this resource. Let's check it out. Press F5 to test it. Walk over to the crate, hit the crate, and it disappears, but nothing happens. Attempt to index field on destroy a nil value. So it's come up with an error there. I'm just going to go and check that out. And the reason for that problem is because on destroy is already on destroyed was the name of the event, and I've used on destroy there. So just a little bit of debugging there. And if I press F5, close the console, walk over here. If I hit this crate, it says crate was damaged, and it's still not working. And that's because when I renamed the event here to on destroyed, let's click the plus and let's just hook this back up here. So a little bit of light debugging there. And I'm expecting now for this to work. There we go. So the crate disappears and the resource spawner spawns a resource. I can press E to pick up that resource, and it's worked. My Smashable loot crate has worked. Now, an extension of this might be something like an amount of health, adding an amount of health to the crate so it takes more than one hit. So let's have a look at the wrench first and see how much damage it does. The wrench does 350 damage. So the damage amount coming in here when I hit it with the wrench is probably going to be 350. And if I want it to have more than one hit with the wrench, it to take more than one hit with the wrench to destroy the crate, I can create a new property, create health, or just health. Type is a number. And let's make the default 700, actually 600. So we know it's going to take 2 hits with our wrench by default to smash the crate. So now I've got this new property down here called health. Now at the moment, this function is just automatically just straight away destroy the crate and show the pickup. But what I want to do is take a couple of hits to destroy the crate. So I'm going to reduce the amount of health by the damage amount each time this gets hit. So self.properties.health equals self.properties.health minus damage amount, which means that make the health whatever the health was minus the amount of damage that has been caused by something. So if it's the axe, we know that that damage amount is 350, but it could be anything by any weapon. It could be someone shooting it with a gun or a pistol or a rocket launcher, whatever. And so now we have an amount of health in here. So after the first hit, that will be 600 minus 350. So that'll be 250 left. And the second hit will be 250 minus 350. So it will be a minus number or below 0, which means that at that point, we should get rid of it. That's when we should say, hey, you've destroyed the crate. It's time to make it invisible and show some sweet, sweet loot. So if self.properties.health is less than or equal to 0, then hide the crate, make it uncollidable, and run the onDestroyed event. There we go. So let's see what happens now. I've got my wrench, my handy wrench. Let's swing the wrench. So it hasn't destroyed the crate the first hit. It has destroyed it the second hit. And now I can interact with that resource and collect that. One other thing I did talk about was how we might go about having multiple resources spawn. So I'm going to just copy and paste this resource a few times. So now I have 3 resource spawners. And this is the beauty of using this onDestroyed event rather than tightly coupling it together. I'm going to click plus, create a new binding, and I'll put my resource spawner 2 in there and show pickup for that one. And I'll click plus again, put my resource spawner 3 in there and show pickup one more time. So now, if I test, so to start with, there's no resources, and I run up to the crate and hit it, nothing happens. Second time, and now I have 3 resources. So, an abundance of loot now, 3 delicious apples, which in the adventure template, you could use to buy things in the shop and all that sort of stuff. Some more extensions that you might want to take a look at would be something like adding your sounds and effects and things like that for the crate actually smashing. So you might want to do some kind of exploding barrel or something like that. Making this into a template and then placing it around your game level so you can reuse it. I will make this Smashable crate into a package and post it on the community. So you should be able to find Andy's Smashable crate, and you can go in there and you can take a look through the code that I've written here. So this was the crate smash script. The pickup spawner script is already included in the adventure template. And that's how to make some smashable loot crates in Crayta. I hope you found this tutorial interesting and helpful. If you have any problems, don't forget to head over to our Discord, discord.gg/Crayta. Ask anything in the Ask Anything channel. If it's coding you really want help with, head over to the Lua Help channel, where there's loads of community members all willing to help you out, investigate your problems, and we all just want to help each other make awesome things. So yeah, I'll see you over in Discord, and I look forward to seeing your smashable loot crates in Crayta.